Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Mr. Go channel. So today we're going to learn how to structure a planned response, and that is the essence of what we are going to go through today. So for assessment objective for paper 4, especially for planned response, which is the first part, we need to present ideas and opinions fluently and effectively to engage the audience. Taking out the keyword effective and engage, which means that we need to engage our audience. So are you ready? Let's go. For planned response, candidates need to plan and deliver a response of up to 2 minutes to a video clip and accompanying prompt presented on a computer screen. And the candidates are assessed on their ability to present their ideas and opinions fluently and effectively to engage the audience. That's where the structure comes in. With a good structure, you'll be able to engage your audience. On top of your delivery, of course. This is 15 marks out of 30 marks for your paper 4, which is your oral communication. And out of that, 10 marks goes to your content, which means your content needs to be solid. So let's take a look. For your assessment criteria, we are focusing on your development and organization of ideas. And that is of course include your expression of ideas as well. So for band 5, you need to have a well-considered response, which is well-developed and organized. Keyword organized. When you want to focus on organized, that is where all the magic happens. Because a well-organized structure is coherent and easily understood by the audience, which is what we are looking for. Before we do that, I would really appreciate it if you can give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and press the notification button. Thank you so much. If you were to write this down, it will look like 3 paragraphs, so you might want to revolve your presentation around 3 big ideas. As for paragraph, we are so familiar with PU paragraph, which is very common in your essay writing, where you talk about your point, explanation, your example or evidence, followed by your link. But we are looking at the alternative. We are looking at OREO. OREO. So what does OREO means? So we're looking at opinion, reason, example, last but not least, an overarching statement. First, we look at opinion. We need to know your response, and that needs to answer the question. Remember, your opinion. Next, we're looking for the reason for such a response. Of course, if you were to say that you are so handsome, obviously you must have a reason for that. Perhaps you found it from your likes and views, perhaps you found it from the comments from your friends and families. And next, for the third part, the E, we are looking at the example. We could be example from the video, where we're looking at the people, environment, activity, P, or it could come from your personal experience. We call that anecdote, which is essentially a short story from yourself. And last but not least, we have an overarching statement. We are talking about your conclusion, which is to sum up what you have said so far. It will give you and the audience a very good understanding of what you have spoken so far to lead up to the next point. Henceforth, for your first paragraph, you might want to come up with your own personal response to the question. That is, to answer the question. Next, for your second paragraph, you might want to present an alternative or contrasting viewpoints, something that is different from your first response. And last but not least, for your third paragraph, you might want to consider a global or thematic viewpoint, let's say from healthcare or perhaps from technology viewpoint, that will present something that is different and show sophistication in your answer. Let's take a look at the first question. This is the prompt. Does hawker center food such as the one seen in the video appeal to you? Why or why not? Let's take a look at the video. Well, at this point, you have 5 minutes to plan your answer, and if you wish, you can use this time to watch the video again, but I would not suggest watching it too many times because you need the time to plan, think, and write down your ideas. So for planning, you might want to refer to another video which is going to appear right at the top right hand corner. So after you plan, we shall move on. Let's take a look. I am going to present you an answer which you are going to ponder and decides whether this answer deserves that band 5 marks for content. So let's take a look at the question first. Does hawker center food such as the one seen in the video appeal to you? Why or why not? So you have to come to a stand where does it appeal to you or does it not appeal to you? To tell you the truth, there is no correct answer. Yes, hawker center most definitely appeal to me. See, the use of keywords, that is what would answer the question. And you would like to agree or disagree later, but first agree, yes. Next, hawker center food does strike a chord with most Singaporeans, and I am no exception, as they remind me of home. For example, in the video, one of my favorite dish, stir-fried Hokkien Mee, was plated by industrious hawkers plying their trade. The familiar action is honed by years of practice, are no different from a skillful artist in action. Despite the spacious environment show, it can sometimes be stifling hot due to the various styles stewing, grilling, and frying. So in this case, we are targeting people, environment, and activity that we have seen in the video, which you will take note and add that to your plan. Last but not least, we come to overarching statement. So for the overarching statement, even though the hawker center food doesn't exactly strike one as a beautifully plated dish, it adds a nostalgic touch because I often eat there with my family and friends. Eating the food allows me to reminisce about all the good times spent there with them. So it adds a reason, perhaps somehow why they will appeal to you. Because something is cooking there doesn't mean that it might appeal to you. You may be cooking cockroaches. Who knows, right? So this links it in the sense to your own experience of hawker center and your family and friend, which brings back the nostalgic touch, and that's why it's appealing to me. Yes, let's take a look. So in this case, I've highlighted a few expressions. They are called varied expressions, so that you do not keep using the word appeal because you've seen that in your opinion. If I were to use the word appeal again and again, it's not wrong, but it doesn't add to the variety of expression or vocabulary that I have, and it will not do you justice as well. Next, varied styles of cooking, where we talk about stir-fry, plated, stewing, grilling, and frying. So the different style is to show off your range of vocabulary, to know that you have it in you to use it in your own answer. And the last part is talking about concrete vocabulary, nostalgic touch, reminisce instead of using remember, which we all know, but reminisce at a slight touch of sophistication. Next, after you have done that, you want to go on to perhaps something that is of a contrasting nature. So, well, my parents would probably dissuade me from going to such places for food. So when we talk about food, it appeals to me, but my parents would be someone that would be discouraging me. So the reason, often these voices of dissonance, which means they do not agree with me, will reason that such places' food are unhealthy and full of grease. Instead, food should be home cooked and all the unhealthy elements removed. Personal experience, it's understandable to seek healthier alternatives, as in 2019, the most common cause of death in Singapore is cancer, stroke, especially heart issues. This is an example of a statistics. My mother would often claim that hawker food is one of the main contributing factors to such intimidating trends, as we often dealt in such places in the past. Remember reminisce just now? I'm talking about it now as well, the linking aspect. My grandfather has fallen victim to stroke, as he often frequent hawker centers, for he cannot resist the temptations of this greasy yet delectable food previously. Nowadays, we seldom visit such places as my family prefers home cooked food, which is most certainly more nutritious. And we go on to overarching statement. I believe that missing out on such hawker centers savory food is such a pity, and in the future, I will most certainly visit these food establishments again, but on a less frequent basis due to health concerns. So you will talk about your own feelings at the end and try to link it to the idea of your parents dissuading you from actually visiting these food establishments and their delicious food. There is varied in expression in terms of falling victim to cannot resist the temptation in terms of all those highlighted in yellow. The next will be other way. So we present an alternate or contrasting viewpoint. On one hand, we have the food appealing to us. On the other hand, due to my parents' influence, they might not be so influential after all. Next, we have thematic viewpoint, which is statistics based on health, right? Hawker center food and health, we are doing the link here. And on the same issue of health, where my grandfather was a victim to stroke. So that is a personal experience, right? So you can bring in not just from the video, but own personal experience in this case. So if you were to read out exactly what I have read just now, plus all the expression, that will take you approximately 2 minutes, which means that you probably would have to end right here. But what's the fun without some challenge, right? So what would you write for the next paragraph if you were to write? What if you don't have a contrasting view, you decide to take a global or thematic view?
Challenge accepted.
So take a look at clue 1. You can look at hawker center in Singapore is considered a place for community dining and culinary practices in a multicultural urban context. In this case, Singapore fell into this area of intangible cultural heritage from United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And if you want to read the article, the link is right below. And let's ask Mr. Edwin Tong, Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, what actually happened to our hawker center.
Singapore is tremendously honoured to have our hawker culture as our very first inscription on the UNESCO representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity.
That's such a big encouragement to our hawker and our hawker culture. In this case, what does it tell you about our own culture if you want to talk about the theme of our hawker culture? Next, let's talk about hawker culture. You can take a look at how important this is when our Singapore government actually came up with a website just for this. It's under roots.gov.sg and you can take a look by accessing the link stated below. Food for thought. Something for you to consider and perhaps use it as your answer. What is the difference between a food court and a hawker center? Is it because of the air conditioning? Is it because of the variety of food? Is it because it's managed as a private entity? Is it because it has lower influence from the government? Well, I'm gonna leave this question with you and leave it as your food for thought. It makes me hungry after all the hawker center food. So my challenge, write the next paragraph below in the comments based on the thematic approach. What theme would you think of if you were to talk about hawker center food? Last but not least, let's do a recap. We have 3 Oreos, which makes me hungry as well. Oreo 1, where we talk about our own personal response. You have seen an example. Next Oreo is talk about alternative or contrasting viewpoint. It may not be something that is directly opposite, but perhaps varied. Last but not least, we have global or thematic viewpoint when we look at this from the viewpoint of a global perspective. And this will take up approximately 2 minutes. I'm going to place this as a caveat. If you cannot finish either alternative or global, you might want to choose one and ask yourself which one is a stronger point, or perhaps something more appealing to the audience, which is your examiner. If your points are as long as me, then you might want to consider having only 2 paragraphs, but super well developed Oreo paragraph. So that's the end. Hopefully you will have an awesome conversation with your examiner, and that's it from me. Have an awesome day and bye bye.